There you go. All right, welcome everyone. This is How to Talk So Your Emotions Can Hear You. So the first step about this is a lot of times, I think one of the biggest issues people run into when they've done a lot of self-work is they start to get very intelligent. They start to really know things. They start to be very intellectual about how things work and how they should be because they know better. So if someone says or does something that you find hurtful, there's this tendency to intellectualize and say, well, that's about them, not me, and I understand and have empathy in this. And it can create the separation piece where the emotions are still going on. They didn't agree to this new programming of I'm in a higher state now and I'm a better person now. They're like, I'm mad. Like they're still there having their fit, and we're off becoming enlightened. And that hang up is something that this is to address. It's to teach the mind how the higher thinking, the more intelligent self, the self that knows better, the prefrontal cortex, how to communicate with the amygdala, the back of the brain. So the front of the brain getting it talking to the back of the brain. That's what we're going to do. So the back of the brain is several million years old. It was fight or flight survival. It was born to survive, and it's very primal and it defaults. The prefrontal cortex, the part that knows better, the part that we go into when we've done a lot of self-work and we're like, hey, I understand and I have empathy and I this and I that. That all developed over the last couple of 100,000 years. It's much younger and it doesn't have as much root system. Like that amygdala response is very well rooted. It is very, very grounded through our DNA and through our history. And so when I talk about talking so your emotions can hear you, what I'm talking about is creating greater communication between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, the part that does higher reason, higher thinking, higher consciousness, has greater empathy, wants to play nice with others, and the part that is here to survive and just get through the day and is mad and struggling. And so the way we do that is we get very simple. The thing about the amygdala, the part that holds our emotions, is it is childlike. It is very innocent. It doesn't know better, and it stays childlike. It doesn't get our emotional intelligence stays at this level of this happened, I'm happy. That happened, I'm sad. Like it doesn't go, oh, and now this and this and this. It doesn't travel with us. It's happy, it's sad, it's mad, it's basic. It's very basic and simple. So to communicate with it, get basic and simple. And I found when I have small children, and I found that when I talked to my daughter, starting when she was just 6 months old or something, and throwing a tantrum about whatever it was, I found that if I translated the language I was using with her for myself, it was very effective in me hearing it, in the part of me, my unconscious hearing it. So the deeper unconscious is very simple, it's very basic, it's very childlike. So if you talk to it like it's a small child, it will actually hear you. So what that gets to is it's sympathetic. There's no, oh, I should know better, and oh, this, and oh, da, da, da. It's, oh yeah, I'm really sad that my friend didn't come, or someone said something mean to me, or someone yelled at me, or whatever it is that shows up that is triggering for you. There's empathy there where you acknowledge it and you say it's okay. Like you acknowledge the thing that's upsetting. You say it's okay to feel that feeling, and you acknowledge that you are still okay in it. So like, I'm trying to think of a good example here. Someone yelled at me when I was in the parking lot or something. I'm thinking of like something that's happened in my life. Like that was something that happened years ago. I parked badly and someone yelled at me for it as I was getting out of my car. And there's a lot of reactions that one can have to that, but then to go into sympathy of like, I'm scared, I'm angry, I'm defensive. None of that's bad. That's simply how it is. That's like, this is millions of years of programming agreeing that this is an upsetting thing and I'm upset. And so you agree with it, you name it, you say, someone was mean to me and I'm really sad about it. And then you've acknowledged it and the emotion starts to not feel crazy. Like, oh, what's wrong with me that I can't get over this, and it's such a small thing, and why am I still trapped in this, and blah, blah, blah. Like and the old feelings that I felt for a long time that I thought I was over. And, it's like, it's okay. Something happened. I had a reaction and I'm okay. So naming it and stating it in a way that is kind to yourself, where there's empathy for yourself in it, that, and in a very simple language. So I started out, like, the example was, like when my daughter would get upset as a baby, it would be mom went out of the room. She didn't get to nurse when she wanted to. She had to have her diaper changed, these things. So I would say, yeah, it's really upsetting that you have to have your diaper changed right now. I'm sorry. Like, it would be empathetic, nothing like, well, it's good for you to have this, so you shouldn't be upset, because that doesn't communicate to a small child. So when I take that, like, imagine that I'm then talking to myself as a small child, like, yeah, someone was really mean to me just now. And I didn't realize, I didn't see what I'd done. And I did this accident, or, like, I got upset, or whatever it is, like, having the empathy for you the same way you would for a small child is the key here. That this deep unconscious, the parts that having the emotional reaction is a small child, and nothing you learn or do out in the world, no matter how far you develop and grow, that part of you is always a small child. Knowing that. And so when you're in touch with your emotions, they are young, and they will always respond young. So if you get very intellectual and you go, well, people, like, these are things that I teach, these are things that I found very useful, or people are really only perceiving themselves. What other people say and do is about them, not me. How they treat me is how they treat themselves. Like, that's all very surface. That's all very, you'll find that a lot in self-help teachings. And it all is, I say it's surface because it all requires higher reasoning. It all requires higher thinking. And the part that's really going to respond in here needs, yeah, that's really upsetting when someone treats you that way. And that's all it needs. And I'm still okay. And I'm okay in it. And I can be okay. Someone can treat me that way and I can be okay. Like, bring in that you are okay. That same thing, again, your emotions are a small child. You teach them how difficult something is by how you treat it. So you don't get hyper, you don't believe their story, you don't make the emotions right. That, yeah, that's really upsetting and I'm really mad about it, and they shouldn't treat me that way and I'm better than that. And you don't feed into their story, but you do acknowledge it and you say it's okay to feel that way. And I'm in the thick right now with toddlers of training them how to manage their emotions, because I think that's what toddlerhood is. And there's a lot of, let yourself have the big emotion and get really angry, and it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to be sad, and it's okay. And then you are calm. You're separate. You can have, I'm looking for the right word, a certain level of presence to the emotion where you're not identifying with the emotion. So I'm kind of like here's you, here's the emotion. You can create a little bit of distance around it where you're not identifying as it, and then you are giving it the love and attention it needs. So you are treating the emotion as though it's your child that you are giving love to, giving acknowledgement to, giving acceptance to. And then the emotion, that's really all it needs. It comes up because it needs some acknowledgement, and it will generally change. It will generally shift. It will generally go, oh, thanks, okay. Like, you mean it's okay to feel this way? Okay. And then it doesn't need to feel it anymore. I go a lot deeper into emotions in the class I have coming up on manifestation, because they're such a key part of how we perceive and create our reality. But a big piece of it is, once they are acknowledged, they generally change on their own and they feel better. So if you're really upset and someone's saying, calm down, it's not that bad, you're not going to generally go, oh, well, you're right. You're generally going to go, I'm really mad. Like, it'll amp you up more. And even if that's true, it's not a big deal and you're okay, it's still, you need to be acknowledged. You need to be met where you are. Like, yeah, that's really upsetting. I hear you, and you're okay. And it's okay to be upset. And then it's like that acknowledgement and that permission is like, okay. And then you can be in higher reason, because you're not weighed down by unacknowledged anger or unacknowledged pain. I'll call it unacknowledged pain. Acknowledge it, name that it's okay, name that the situation is upsetting, agree with it that's upsetting, but agree with it as an adult does when they're caring for their child, not as, yeah, that's really bad and this shouldn't happen. Like there's no it shouldn't happen in this. There's, it's upsetting, someone was mean to you, or you or that was scary, or whatever it is, and that's okay, and I'm okay. And you bring yourself back, like, it's really upsetting and I'm okay. Like, it's okay that I'm upset. Let's put it like that. It's not like, and I'm okay, like denial, like, well, and I'm okay. It's and it's okay, and I'm okay. I'm okay being angry. It's okay that I'm angry. It's okay that I'm sad. It's okay that I'm scared. And that acknowledgement and that permission, as someone who gives care, you're teaching it how to feel better. The acknowledgement does a huge piece. And then how you respond, like, this is okay. Because you know that other people are projecting onto you. You know that you understand, your intellect understands this. So it can then speak with kindness to your emotions and teach them through your kindness that they are okay and this is okay and it's not life or death and this isn't the end of the world. Again, this part that is running has millions of years of training on how to survive, and it knows it has to be accepted and loved to survive. Connection with others is survival. So if someone's mean to you or something happens that you don't like, am I going to live through it? And the emotions are going to have their reaction. And you're not. And I will say, I've done a lot of emotional work over the last 10 years has been the most intensive of the work I've done. And it still comes up, these things still come up, but I automatically go into a more kind and loving state when they do. I automatically take it as oh, I'm really upset. Let me give that a moment. Rather than going into, well, I shouldn't be, which is, I think, I will say that I had to train myself not to go into, well, I shouldn't be. That's another element. That's another part of this emotional confusion, is it's like, well, I should know better. And that still has, it's still caught up in the anger and the fear and the old school programming. And our new computer program of the prefrontal cortex is it only starts to communicate with it with our conscious presence, with our conscious practice. It doesn't. Otherwise, if you just go along to get along without really paying attention, the amygdala, the back of the brain, will always win because it has more years to train. It's a heavyweight champion. So you gotta give presence. You gotta give some love to prefrontal cortex brain, which is so smart and so intellectual and so right about everything. It's very intelligent. It knows a lot. You gotta give it some backup. You gotta give it presence. Your loving presence and attention is tremendous, and it's all those emotions need. And then I talk, and when I go into emotions, there's things where when they're acknowledged out loud, yes, they do tend to shift very quickly just by you speaking to them with love. Like, hey, I get it, that's upsetting, and I'm okay. And yeah, I'm really mad right now. That person should not have done that. Like you're saying the words without making them true, if that makes sense. Like, I frequently with my kids are like, Mommy's so mean. She won't let you have the lollipop, like I'm agreeing with them. It's like, they're right. Mommy is really mean right now. And they're right. They can't argue with me. I'm not giving them anything they can argue with, but I'm also holding firm. And you can be like that. You can be like, yeah, this is so upsetting, and they shouldn't treat you that way. And they did, and it's okay, and you'll be okay. And don't be afraid. You can't be too loving with yourself. You can't be too kind. You can't be too nice on this one. It's, you can't really be too nice to a 3-year-old. I guess you can get indulgent and stuff, but we're not doing that. We're not indulging. We are acknowledging. We are accepting and acknowledging. And That's an important difference, and I hope it's clear in how I've explained it. Really quick to check in, are there any questions about anything I've said? And you can write it in the chat again if you don't want to be on the video. And it's okay if not. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So naming the situation that is upsetting you. Someone, right now I'm thinking if I was driving and I got caught behind this car that was trying to park, and the guy cursed at me and waved his middle finger at me and stuff, and I was just kind of shaking, like I couldn't back up and give him room. There were cars behind me. I was in this thing, and I was really shaken by it. And I could acknowledge he had a lot of anger that had nothing to do with me. I could acknowledge these things. But the thing that really helped me was being like, yeah, that was really scary. Yeah, that was really, really scary. And I got really scared. And I'm okay. That I'm okay following the acknowledgement of the emotion is the thing that shifts it. So you're saying where you are, and you're acknowledging you're still okay even with that. Because it's okay to feel that way. So when you're saying you're okay, yeah, you are, it's truth, yeah. You're not denying it. You're not denying your feelings. Okay. So I'd like to go ahead and try this with you as a live experiment, because you've got the idea of it. So anyone watching this, I invite you to take a moment and think of a situation. It can be, let's do something minor. We're not going to do anything big here. We're not going to, but just some minor time, you had an interaction with someone that left you feeling kind of bad. And you can acknowledge, like, just thinking to yourself, you can acknowledge, like, yeah, they were mean to me, or that was scary, or whatever it was, and I'm okay. And it's okay that I felt that way. And just see how that affects you. Okay. Okay. I hope I'm not cutting off anyone too soon. If you need more time, you can take it. But if anyone wants to share anything about what that was like for them in the chat, or if you don't mind me on the video, if you noticed any difference, and you don't need to share, I'm just giving that opportunity. Yeah, for me, I went back and did it again a couple of times because I've been doing this for a while. So yeah, it was like little vestiges that I didn't know were there kind of released. Like, yeah, like someone says they felt calm and a sense of forgiveness. Like it can bring in a sense of peace to a situation that might not be peaceful. Yeah. And this is something to keep in mind. Anytime an emotion comes up, whatever it is, it's simply looking for acknowledgement. It doesn't really need much else. And this is where, as a parent, I'm feeling a responsibility here, because I'm teaching my children how to have their emotions and how to engage with them by how I react to them. And usually in parenting, and I probably fall into this, there's a certain impatience about it, because they're getting upset with things that you as the parent know don't matter and know aren't important. And it's because they're tired or whatever. And you might, there's a lot of it doesn't matter if you're upset, you just need to, or something. And there's not really taking the time for the emotion. And so I'm certainly endeavoring with my children to give time for their emotions and give space for them, like physical space. One thing that I've actually had a few clients here about this and want to do it. Like I created uh, um, really quick. I saw some more questions. I'll get to them in a moment. But we got her a TP, like a private space in her bedroom that she can go when her emotions get really big and overwhelming. And I had clients be like, I want a TP. And they make them for adults, it turns out. Like they make little like spaces, quiet, enclosed places that you can go as an adult. And it's like when you're having a meltdown, you just can't get out of it place. That's what it is for our daughter. Yeah. And to the question of, is it emotional intelligence just merely acknowledgement? I think that's a huge piece of it. I think emotional intelligence is knowing what your emotions are and not letting them control you. Like you guide them, they don't guide you. Makes sense? Like you guide your emotions into, like you don't let the emotions be right because they're survival mechanisms among other things. And they're trained patterns and they're all this other thing. Your higher reasoning or higher intelligence will always know a little bit better than they will, so it can guide them. And when you combine your higher reasoning with your emotions, then you become emotionally intelligent. And then their higher reasoning is it's giving the acknowledgement and it's guiding to the next step, to well-being. Yeah, and I'm okay. That's one way. I've also talked about when you allow an emotion fully, it will pass on its own. Like if you don't think about it, and if it needs that. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. Doesn't it feel really good to get angry? Like to be mad? Doesn't that feel good to just get really, really mad? What if that's okay? And you can go and you can do it, or you can cry, like really, really cry and let it all out. It feels so good. Anger, sadness, fear, they're not even unpleasant. They just need their time and their space. Isn't it wonderful that you can give that to yourself? Like it's not wallowing, it's allowing. And that's, these things, they get a little, the wallowing is when you cycle in your thoughts about it and you make it a problem, and it's wrong that you feel that way, and it's wrong that you're everything and you're in bed and you can't get out of bed, and it's when thoughts are being led by the emotion. I'd say that's wallowing. I'd say allowing is when the thoughts are separate and the emotion is being allowed. So you're a witness to the emotion without letting it create a story. You're not giving it the power of your thoughts. That makes sense? So let yourself feel. Give yourself time to feel. Acknowledge the emotion. If it needs more than just being named, if it needs a good cry, if it needs you to punch a pillow, give it that. And allow yourself to be okay. Like, it's okay that I need this and I get to go and live my wonderful life. My life is this good. I get to feel and live, not just live. Because most of us are like, well, emotions are in the way. I'll go out and have my life and I'll just let the emotions go away. They don't. Okay. Any questions about any of that? And thank you. Also, someone else said that it feels more relaxed, and like this idea that you can let it go. Like there's a level of freedom that shows up when you're not afraid of your emotions and they're allowed and they're okay. When you treat them, always think of them as small children. Pretty much anything in your life, if you think of it as a small child asking for attention, you'll treat it better and more appropriately. So have that in mind. Yeah.
Sarah, I just wanted to offer an observation. An appreciation for understanding the prefrontal cortex being this intellectual aspect and the amygdala being the childlike aspect. The exercise that you had us do to that acknowledgement was actually a softer place. And then I noticed as some of the intellectual stuff wanted to come in as there was discussion after that, I noticed how much harder that felt.
Huh.
Well, there was a difference in ease, a softness, a softer approach versus a harder approach.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, there's a softer. Well, one thing I found, if I tried to shift an emotion without first allowing it to be how it is, it was a fight. There was a push. It was a pushback. But just a little bit of it's okay to feel this way. It's something like, well, now everything's okay. And I can be peaceful. Or, it gets softer. And you're giving that loving kindness to something that's showing up and asking for it. Like yeah. Do you want to say something else?
Well, you're mentioning the word allowing again, and you mentioned it earlier, and I just think that is really powerful too, because allowing is softer than pushing back.
Yes.
Right? So
yes.
it's just this whole different feel about it. You used that word a minute ago too, right? It was lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, very glad to. Very glad to. Thank you. Yes, and to the question, anxiety is considered an emotion. All of these things are emotions. They have physiological responses. Anxiety is a very physiological experience, but all emotions have a physiological response. And if you acknowledge anxiety and name it and say it's okay and allow it, it will change just like any other. I have a friend who's had chronic anxiety all her life. She had done all this self-work, and I think she was in her 40s, and we were talking, and it never occurred to her that anxiety could shift. It was such a baseline. It was so normal to her. It never occurred to her that it could also change. And that was after years and years of self-work and working through all these things. And it can, try it. Just try acknowledging it. Just try this little bit of acknowledging it and saying it's okay to feel this way. Don't fight it, allow. Yeah. Same with people who have chronic anger issues. I mean, all these things, they get chronic because they're, fear and anger are very survival. They're very like, gotta do something. They both have a, I gotta do something thing. And doing something is how we survive. Build a fire or die, get food or die, find shelter or die, do something or die. We never really left that behind. So anxiety and anger, they both have okay, gotta do something. They both impel action, which is why they're so common and so deeply rooted. But they are not gonna inspire, you're not gonna, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example, but you're just not gonna do higher functioning things from anger or fear. Like your higher brain function's not on, it's on do or die. It's, you're not going to do amazing things in your life from do or die. Though sometimes that fear really propels people far, but I would say you'll end up with more fear. You're really propelled by fear. You'll end up with more fear, no matter what you do. So just acknowledge it, allow it. And when I talked about action last week, I made a big deal about don't let action come from those feelings that are less, like don't let anxiety be the reason you do something. Don't let it direct your actions the same way you don't want to direct your thoughts. You can create distance and space with acknowledgement and allowing, and then you can go and you can, from a higher state, a genuine higher state, do higher things. But we've got to allow the other, and this way of talking to them, of acknowledgement, of kindness, of treating them like a small child, is how we do that. You can't say, well, this isn't useful to me, so I'm not going to feel this way. Well, this child is really annoying, so I'll just put them in the closet. How's that going to go? I'm sure they'll turn out just fine. And when I let them out of the closet, they'll be much better behaved. Yeah. the funny thing is there's a lot of parenting that tries that. So treat your inner child like you are a very good parent. You're a very kind and loving parent to your inner child. Because whatever kind of childhood you had, you can always be a loving parent to yourself. You can learn those lessons. Acknowledgement, kindness, gratitude, love. You can treat any emotion with that and it will feel better. Okay. Yeah. So we are at the half-hour mark. You are welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions. This is part of, I'm doing these free talks as part of their sort of highlights. I have an upcoming class on how manifestation really works, level 1. I taught it before and it was so much information. I split it into levels 1 and 2. And these things about emotions and such are in level 1 of acknowledge it. And then we go deeper with it and more things about emotions and how to allow them without them, so that they don't hamper your life. They actually feed into your life. They actually improve your life because they have that ability. And it's not like you always have to feel good for that to happen. This acknowledgement piece, though, is huge. I'm just going to put in the chat here the website for where you can learn about the class I have coming up. And there's also a little questionnaire on there that goes with it. And then any questions or anything, you're welcome to follow up with me, Sarah@bodyinsights.com. I'll write that in on here too. And this is on YouTube. It will also be in the content of the channel below the video. That is. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. Please, I will be back next week. I don't yet know exactly what next week's topic is going to be, but I think it'll have something to do with spirit. I think we're going to be talking about working with spirit in the course of manifestation. So, and how to work with spirit. So come back next week and we'll be about that. And then if you can't join us, you can either get me, I can either email you a video, or if I have it on YouTube, I'll send you the link. Okay, thank you. All right, bye.